So we've been talking about this, happiness independent of conditions. And we've talked about it from a lot of points of view. When I first went into the Zen temple after I'd been at Mount Koya for a while, I decided that I wanted to experience training in the Zen tradition. I think I'd been at Mount Koya for 2 years, and I'd completed what's called Kegyo, which is the basic training in Shingon. That's 100 days in isolation. I went to the abbot of the temple, and I said, can I go away for the summer, for 4 months, to Kyoto to do the summer training at one of the Zen temples in Kyoto? And he was not very happy about that, actually. But what he said is, well, first of all, he scared me. He said he himself had once considered going to do the Zen training, but when he looked into it, the Zen people said, because you belong to another school, you're going to probably get beat up even more than us. He told me this story, right? So it's like, oh, okay. Well, I still think I'd like to try it. And then he said, okay, but just all I ask is, don't come back here with a half-baked knowledge of Zen and criticize Shingon. Don't come back with a half-baked knowledge of Zen and criticize your school, the Shingon school. So I said, okay, I won't do that. And he gave me permission. So, I was like really scared, because it's like you're going to get beat up more than even those guys, okay? And they get beat up. Now, beat up could mean physical, but it could also be emotional. So the way I got into the temple, it was Shokokuji. Actually, Gary Snyder had practiced at Shokokuji at an earlier period. He even writes about it. You can find his writings about the Rohatsu Sesshin at Shokokuji Temple. Shokokuji is one of the 7 Rinzai Zen training centers in the city of Kyoto, which is the old capital of Japan. So anyway, everything in Japan is done through Shotaijo. That means a letter of introduction. So I got Abe Masao, who helped a lot of foreigners get involved in practice in the early days, was a friend of mine. And so I asked him to sort of find a Zen temple, that would take me and sort of, do the, set it up for me, and he did. So there's different things you have to do, and I've told you some of the stories about little tests that they put you through it before they let you in. But then once they let you in, they really let you in. It was pretty cool. So one of the things that you need to be a Zen monk is you need a copy of the Rinai Roku. So the Rinai Roku is the Japanese pronunciation of the Chinese book Lin Ji Lu. And Lu means a record. Lin Ji was a famous monk. He's the monk that started the Rinzai school. Lin Ji is the Mandarin pronunciation of Rinzai. So these are the sayings of Master Lin Ji, who lived in the Tang Dynasty. So what happens is each morning the master of the Zen temple, the Roshi, gets up and gives a teisho based on this text. And he reads it in Sino-Japanese, what's called kanbun. He reads it in Sino-Japanese, but it's absolutely impossible to understand by just listening. I mean, simply impossible. Even if you were a Buddhist scholar, you can't understand just by listening, because there's so many words that sound the same in Sino-Japanese. Sino-Japanese has to be seen to be comprehended. So every Zen monk has a copy in Chinese of the Rinai Roku, the sayings of Master Rinzai, so that when the Roshi is reading in this weird pronunciation, you can see with the kanji, you can see the characters, and you can follow what he's saying. So I needed a copy of the Rinai Roku. So Abe Sensei gave me a copy, and it's really cool because it's not a modern printed book. It's the old style of like woodblock printing, and the old style bindings, the way they used to make books hundreds of years ago in that part of the world. So it's like, it's like really, really old fashioned, right? So he gave me a copy of the Rinai Roku. And so I remember I'm there, and it's like the first night, and I'm going to, the next day I'm going to start this little series of tests. And I knew that if I passed all those tests and got in, I was just going to be bossed around for 6 months. I was going to be like someone's slave. So it was like really, really scary. And so I was sort of going through my stuff and organizing my stuff, and I saw the Rinai Roku, the Linji Luke book that Abe Sensei had provided for me so I could follow the teishos. And so I opened it up just to look at it, and he had calligraphed on the cover, on the first page of it, before you get into the text, like just the title page, he had calligraphed in his own writing with a brush 4 kanji. And those are the kanji. And it just jumped off the page and into my heart. It's a phrase from one of the Zen masters. And what it means is, be the master of every situation. Now, that's the literal meaning of these 4 characters. Be the master of every situation. Zuisho ni shu tonaru. Sui chu zuo chu in Mandarin Chinese. And I knew, because I'd done enough study and practice, I knew what he was trying to convey. You might think that he was saying, you can tough it out. Don't let them get you down. One might think that that's what that meant, but I knew for sure that that's not at all what he was reminding me of, because I'd seen the phrase before in my studies, and I knew in the Zen tradition what it referred to, and it referred to something very specific. When the Zen people talk about being the master, so the master is the person that owns the house. And they talk about host and guest. So this also means host, okay? So when you contrast host and guest, I said master, but it also means host, the person that owns the house. So when they say be the host in every situation, or be the master in every situation, this is an idiom that refers to a very specific experience. Yesterday, I talked about a sense of compassion arising from wisdom, because wisdom allows you to experience each person, each thing really, as being molded moment by moment before your very eyes, before your sight, sound, touch. Expansion and contraction are loving your world into existence, and this is not a theory, it's not a belief, it's not even a feel-good emotion. It's in your touch, sight, sound circuits, so you can't escape it, even if you would want to, and who would want to. So you experience your inner world, your inner see or feel, is this sort of bubble that's percolating up from the still point of the turning world. And simultaneously, this other bubble is percolating up, that is the flower or the person or the tree, what have you. And it's like the two bubbles, it's like God's thought balloons or something that are sort of like expanding and then collapse down and then expand out again. Now, experiencing yourself and the so-called other simultaneously born from the same source leads to a sense of connection that leads to an effortless compassion. The quality of mercy is not strained. It falleth like the gentle rain from heaven. That's Shakespeare. But he's talking about a spontaneity, a just happeningness in one's caring. So that's what happens when you experience the outer world and the inner world both arising simultaneously, and you experience them with the wisdom mind. So there's an it, and there's a me, but they're coming and they're both arising. I'm reacting. There's a self over here that's experiencing an it over there, but I'm experiencing both of them as sharing the same source. So that leads to a compassion, an I-thou relationship as opposed to an I-it relationship. However, there's another thing that can happen. It's similar, but even more challenging. What happens if instead of these two bubbles simultaneously arising from the same source, what happens if there's only the out? No inner reactivity at all. What happens then? Well, the identity moves out and literally lives inside what was formerly other. For however long there's contact in touch, sight, sound. That's what they mean by being the master, okay? You're the host inside each of these houses that normally you think of as other. It's like you're now inside that person looking out from their eyes. Or if it's a flower, they don't have eyes, but you're inside the activity called flower because you're doing the activity called flower, and you're not, for a brief moment, 30 seconds or shorter or longer, the activity called Shinzen has completely flatlined. And the only activity that there is the activity called flower, or the activity called, Peter, Paul, Mary, whoever you're interacting with. There's just that. So it seems like you're in each place, you're the Lord of that house. You're the master of that place. So what he was really telling me is, in just 4 kanji, he was saying, okay, Shinzen, I know you're scared shitless, and they're going to be, you're going to encounter some harsh shit here. But no matter how seemingly mean or scary or in your face, the so-called other may be, you know what your job is. And if you remember that job, you're going to be just fine.